Welcome to the Unfiltered Show from the Score Studios. My name is Joseph Casciaro, and today my in-studio guest, sideline reporter for the Raptors on Sportsnet, host of SWISH inside the WNBA on NBA TV Canada, and as I can attest, a certified bucket on the court. Savanna Hamilton, Sav, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, hey, you got some moves there too, so I appreciate that.
You're being way too generous. We both know I don't. We both know I don't.
You got some
Maybe on the
stuff.
soccer field, not on the basketball. Maybe I shouldn't tell people that as I'm hosting a basketball show every week. But yeah, the court, not my forte. The mic, yeah, more so.
There you go. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming in. We were just talking about how summer's over. Kids are back to school. First pumpkin spice latte has been purchased.
Facts. I know. This is how you can tell it's fall when the short shorts are still on, but you're having pumpkin spice lattes in your hands. So it's that awkward time where it's not quite summer, not quite fall.
Best season for fashion though. Shorts and hoodies.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Maybe not the best season for basketball news if you're only looking at the NBA. We're going to get to a lot of WNBA talk later. The only real NBA piece of news I can kind of think of right now, Steph Curry signed a 1-year, $62.6 million extension that keeps him under contract with the Warriors through 2026-2027. So we know the Warriors, since they won the 2022 title, things haven't been great. In general, since they ripped off all those finals appearances, they've kind of been trending down. But they do still have Steph.
Yep.
In your mind, if they have him for the full 3 years of this contract now, do you see the Warriors able to win another one, or maybe at least compete for one on Steph's timeline, or is it done?
This is going to kill me because, growing up and like watching the Golden State Warriors a lot, like even when Steph was at Davidson to now, I'm going to say it's a wrap.
Yeah. Like,
I'm just going to face the facts. I'm going to look at, because it's not just Steph. You can't just use Steph. Steph is not as fast as he was before. That was made very apparent this past season. He's still very smart, such a great leader, obviously a great guy in the locker room, but it's about now the pieces around him who can support him, and there just isn't quite enough. And I know they still got Draymond Green, right? They still got Buddy Hield, and they have Andrew Wiggins technically for now. And even that, there's a lot of question marks with the rest of the roster as well. Like, what can they do with this? They lost Klay Thompson. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting look to see him in a Dallas uniform.
It's going to be weird.
Very weird. Yeah. But after I re-rack my brain on that one, it's going to be tough. Honestly, I have them because the West is it's wild. It's a wild West for a reason.
A bloodbath.
It's going to be, they could easily be up to, a 7-8 team, I think. But they could I could see another, 10-seeded spot for them as well. Yeah. I don't necessarily have them competing for a championship. If they do, that's because they must have made a major move. And then I'll respect that. Yeah. But right now, unfortunately, I don't think Steph is quite enough by himself.
So I agree with you, but then I'll pick it up on that major move. I'll go the opposite way and say they'll find a way to contend again because of that major move. So
contend for a West? Contend.
I'm going to say contend for a title, and I know that sounds far-fetched based on where they are right now. I'm just looking at it as like you mentioned, that major move. They do have a bunch of guys that are under contract for the same amount of time, at least as Steph. I think we can, bring it up here. So, Draymond, I know he's older, but these are all guys under contract for the time Steph is or more, right? Buddy Hield, Wiggins, you mentioned them, Kyle Anderson, Pajemski, Trace Jackson-Davis, and then they've got Kuminga and Moody, who I think are RFAs next year. The way I see it is they at least they might not have enough in terms of talent to compete, but they at least have enough in terms of some young talent, some tradable guys. I think they can trade 2 firsts and put a bunch of swaps on the table, where I just see it as okay, they have to know this is the end for Steph.
Yeah.
And I feel there's some responsibility on the franchise.
Yeah.
Look, I know we want to protect our future, but this is Steph. Everything we've been for the last decade is because of his presence, and we need to reward him in some way. And I know, like you said, Steph's a great locker room guy. I don't think he's the kind of guy that would start crap if at the end of his career he's not competing for championships every year.
Yeah.
But I feel like they owe it to him a little bit. And they haven't acted like it. Even this past summer, I think there was the report that they didn't want to put Pajemski on the table to get Lowry Markkanen. So maybe when reports like that come out, maybe they're not gonna, they're not gonna follow through on owing it to him.
Yeah.
But I feel like something will click in the next couple of years where they're okay, we need to. Steph's still so good. We saw the power he still wields even in the Olympics.
100%.
That maybe they're look, he's still good enough that if we just give him some help, he's got a shot. We can give him a chance to compete, and we owe him that.
100%.
So I'm going to say it doesn't look like they should be able to compete right now, but they'll find a way to give Steph one more shot at a title before he retires.
I mean, the X factor is also obviously the coach. Like, Steve Kerr's amazing. He's great at uniting guys and creating chemistry on the team. So if you're going to play the devil's advocate, I'll join you in just a little bit for this one.
Yeah.
Is the fact that I could see, like, Steve Kerr also turning this group into a competitive roster. Yeah. Maybe getting the best out of these guys. And then Steph knows how to pull the best out of his teammates, and also like his assists and spreading the floor. Like, you can do a lot when a guy can shoot from basically half court.
Exactly.
And so you don't necessarily need like another A-list talent beside you. I still think he needs like really strong talent around because he is older. But that being said, like, team chemistry, amazing coaching, being able to spread the floor, that's going to be the differentiating factor to get the Warriors to a potential competitive spot. Yeah. I'm not giving them a contending spot.
I hear you. But I am interested to see what it looks like with Hield this year. Because, I mean, listen, I know, obviously, like, career-wise, he's not Klay Thompson. No. He's not a splash brother. But if you go by, like, where they are...
Underrated, though.
Man, I think I should have probably looked at this before we came in, but he's up in terms of total threes made over like last X amount of years. I think he might actually be second to Curry. Like, he is a consistent 3-point shooter. Yeah, like he's up there.
Now
he hits a ton of threes, and that's what I'm saying. At this stage of their careers, like where he is now versus where Klay is at this point of his career, I think Hield's an upgrade. So again, not career-wise.
Not a splash brother.
Yes.
Splash cousin.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Or he's like a half splash brother. Yeah.
A splash step brother?
Yes. Exactly.
There you go.
But I think he can I think he can at least make up for what Klay is right now.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to be 2016 Klay, but I think he'll be better than 2023 Klay.
Yeah, because 2023 Klay was pretty miserable too. So, and he was coming back still, it looked like, from injury. Like, you say what you want, but his type of injuries at that age take a little longer.
Yeah, I don't think he'll ever be the same.
Yeah.
Okay. To a league that is actually in full swing, and not just in full swing, but heading down the stretch now of the season, playoffs a few weeks away, obviously talking about the WNBA. I know everyone's talked about this, it's been discussed ad nauseum, but listen, it is the story that everyone's talking about. Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese for Rookie of the Year. They did just have their last matchup of the season, which, by the way, was in front of a sellout crowd in Chicago.
Shaq was there.
Always attracting the A-listers when those two play each other, even back to college. Has Caitlin Clark wrapped this thing up based on that matchup and the season as a whole? Is it over? Is she the Rookie of the Year? Or do you still think Angel Reese deserves consideration?
So I put a lot of thought into this because, when you cover the league, you really got to see it from all sides of the perspective, I guess. Angel Reese right now is the all-time leading WNBA rebounder, period, in a single season. She's gotten the most rebounds in a single season in WNBA history. She's a rookie. And then you have Caitlin Clark setting it ablaze so many ways. She's actually close to the assist record right now. She's like 50-something away, which if you average it, it's just over 6 per game with the games left. So you basically got two women who are just trailblazing, ripping history apart for the WNBA. And I think it's like those two pieces, they complement each other, right? It's like two sides of a coin. Yeah. Like you can almost argue, like, would one be as great if the other one wasn't around? Because I think there is a chip on the shoulder. It's a competition. And you saw the game on Friday. And yeah, like Caitlin Clark, like she cooked. Like she cleaned. She did everything she could to really put that staple down as like she is Rookie of the Year. Like I said, it's hard for me because as a former post player, I respect the board game. But a lot of it, I will say also, is if you look at the overall game and just kind of like what each player brings to each team. When I look at the definition of most valuable player, I always come back to this. Who's the most valuable player to their team? Like, who is keeping their team alive? And I think that Chicago, although they're in a rebuild stage, they definitely would not be as good without Angel Reese. They'd still be okay, like bottom, but okay. Caitlin Clark, not a chance. Like, Indiana Fever would not be anywhere on the map without Caitlin Clark. And Aaliyah Boston is an amazing player on Fever as well. That's why they do so well together. Yeah. And then I also think about just like, what does Caitlin bring overall to her team and overall to the league even? And that means that she stretches the floor like a Curry, obviously, that's the biggest comparison. She's able to give her teammates assists. She's one of the assist leaders in the league. She's able to still get some spots. She's just some drives, but she's more of a drive and kick, which gets her teammates open. So then I look at Angel's game. I'm like, okay, Angel's going to go hard in the post. She's going to grab the boards. She's going to get her, go back up strong and do the best she can there. She's more of a gritty player. She's kind of like a Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
And so when I think about those two players in particular, I think who brings more value? Who do I want as my teammate? Well, there's a lot of kind of like Dennis Rodmans out there, but there ain't a lot of Steph Currys out there.
Yeah.
And I think that alone, for me, gives Caitlin the bump. But I think it's going to really come down to this final stretch of games of who can really lock in their playoff spot for their team, because I think that's going to be a huge determining factor. Also, credit to Indiana Fever, because they lost like 9 games straight in the beginning of the season, and they really turned it around.
They have a winning record now.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's also a telltale of like Caitlin overcoming a lot of the adversity pushed her way. We saw all the flagrant fouls and stuff like that, and she's not the only player that gets flagrant fouls and fouls in general, but like it's definitely, you could kind of tell it's kind of skewed towards her. Like let's call it for what it is. And so yeah, I think for overcoming a lot / like just like what she's given to her team and what the definition of most valuable player really means, Caitlin has like the 5% edge.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Listen, all due respect to Angel Reese, I like her as a player. I like her as a personality. I think she's good for the league. She's good for in general. But I think this race is over. Caitlin Clark, to me, has been the more productive player, the more efficient player, despite having a heavier workload. Because like you said, she has more of the offensive responsibilities, and she's still able to be more efficient for the much better team that now has a winning record. I think whereas Chicago, I think, is like 10 games under 500. So I just think when you add it all up, like she's been more productive. Like the stats say it, the efficiency says it, her team performance says it, the individual matchups. I think that last one was the nail in the coffin, where she, I think, had 31 and 12. And Angel Reese, she had a double-double, but she struggled. She was like 4 of 9 from the field.
Yeah.
I think that race is over. But again, that's not taking anything away from Angel Reese. You made the Rodman comparison. I love that. She wore the Rodman jersey before that matchup. And I think that's perfect for her. And I know people will knock the limited offensive game, and I've seen some people say, well, she gets a lot of rebounds because she misses. Like, she's getting her own misses, which, okay, fair, but at the same time...
But she's getting them.
That's the thing. She's still beating everyone to the boards, and she still ends up converting them to buckets. Does she make it a little more difficult for herself?
She's a rookie still.
Right.
Yeah.
But she's getting to those boards. Like you said, we're not just talking about the rookie double-double record, what she has. She's had more rebounds in a season than anyone in WNBA history. Not just rookies, anyone.
And she has the most double-doubles in a season.
Yes. It's
2 records.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, as much as I think the race for Rookie of the Year is over and Clark has the edge, take nothing away from Angel Reese. Very Rodman-like. Limited offensive game, but ferocious rebounder, great defender, wants it more than almost anyone else. Yeah,
just give it to them both.
Yeah, honestly, I think in general, I think we can agree that what they've done for the league in terms of just extra attention they brought from the college game to here, it's translated.
100%.
People are excited and people are talking about it, and that's a great start.
I've said this before, and I will say it again. The WNBA right now is going through the same era of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson.
I love that.
But it's just Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And I knew that the WNBA needed this boom. They needed this storyline and the way it is and all the undertones that people more or less put weight into. I want to get into that. I just see it for basketball. But either way, it's drawing attention. It's the best thing that has happened to the league, I'm going to say, since the existence of the league. Because there's tons of talented players. But people are drawn to storylines, superstars, and just then you could talk about talent.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about all 3.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And you mentioned those storylines. Okay, so I know I brought up one that everyone kind of knows, but as someone that covers the league, what would you say is maybe a storyline to watch down these final few weeks of the season that people aren't talking enough about?
The rest of the league? I would say, for me, what stands out is probably 2 teams, actually. Connecticut Sun, as well as the Minnesota Lynx. Connecticut Sun, they're kind of sitting at the top of the league right now, like right up there in the mix. Obviously, New York Liberty, they're number 1. They've already secured their playoff spot. But Connecticut Sun, they have just been on fire since the season really started. Had maybe a few bumps in the road, but for the most part, very consistent. They've always been a playoff contender. They've always gotten themselves in great positions to potentially win a championship, but they just always kind of fall a little bit short. But this year, it feels like they're coming out for a vengeance. Alyssa Thomas is just ripping it. Dwana Bonner is also having some career highs this season. And then you look at Minnesota Lynx. They are my dark horse. I would say that, like, you look at, also start with the Canadian, Bridget Carleton. She's been such a solid piece for them. Very consistent. Always, kind of contributing around like the 10-point mark, or even if it's a little less some games, she's always being very effective on the rebounds. But something with the Minnesota Lynx is that a lot of them can stretch the floor. And so when one of them, say Nafisa Collier, like she's having, a bad game, then like Kayla McBride can stretch the floor there. And then they also know they're kind of versatile in a lot of different ways, just kind of like big guards that can also like get to the rim and be very gritty. I think that's kind of what has given them the edge this season. And so I could see them taking the league by surprise and going pretty far in the playoffs. So that's kind of my dark horse, and Connecticut Sun is definitely not as much of a dark horse, but deserves to be credited and talked about as for sure.
For me, I'd say just watching AJ Wilson in general, unguardable. People should be doing that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I know you mentioned the league leading Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like, because I looked it up because I was like, okay, I know they made the finals last year and lost, but I was like, I swear I remember as a kid when the WNBA first started that Liberty were always in the finals. And so I went back and looked at it yesterday, and yeah, they made the finals like 4 out of their first 6 seasons, something. So they've now been to the finals 5 times since their franchise started, which was when the league started, and they went to the finals last year, but they've never actually won it. So I think that's a storyline to watch too, is like, can the best team in the league, at least by record right now, actually get the job done in the playoffs, win the franchise's first title, and win New York's first professional basketball title in 51 years. 51 years.
It's been a minute.
So I think that's something to watch. Okay, bringing it home to finish it off, since we are both Torontonians, both Canadians.
Hey.
We know we've got this nationwide search right now to come up with a name for the WNBA team that will be tipping off here in 2 years in 2026. I'm sure everyone has their own wish list out there. WNBA Toronto put out a reel on Instagram last week where they broke it down. It was really cool. It was like 7% of the. We actually have. Look at this professionals
it's the production team
in the production team in the
in the back
in the control room there, where it's like kind of like percentage of the responses they've got that are related to this or related to that. It's really cool the way they broke down. But anyway, if you had your say, forget what everyone else wants.
Yeah.
If you had your say, what is the WNBA's Toronto team nickname when they tip off in 2 years?
I have put a fair bit of thought. I can tell you what they're not. Not the Huskies.
Well, that might have just rinsed my answer for 15 seconds from now.
For me, justifiably, just because I feel like the Huskies is something that, it's a lot of male history. Like, that's the male side of basketball in Toronto. They made their mark. They've done their thing. Kind of leading up to the Raptors. Like, the Raptors still pay ode to the Huskies every so often, every couple of years, by wearing the Huskies jerseys and stuff. So it's like, hey, I love that for them. Let's create our own mark, which kind of actually leads me to the name that has stood out to me probably the most. And I have 2 now, because actually this morning I was scrolling and I saw a name that really jumped at me. So I'll go to the one that first stood out, and then I'll go to the second. The first one is the Toronto Legacy.
Nice.
And I will credit producer at MLSC, Adam Holmes, for that one, because he said that off the rip, and I was like, whoa, why does that have a bit of a ring to it? Like, we are creating a legacy. This is how you build a legacy. There's so much plays on that word. As for like mascots, I don't know. I'm not. That's
how do
problem.
you do a mascot?
I don't know what that would look like. I don't know. I don't. I'm not sure about that one, but I do just love even if it's a hard year, even if they're having a bad season, like, this will all go down in their legacy to leading to something great. Like, they're building something great. And so I feel like you could play off of that a lot. The second one that really stood out to me this morning was actually from Fiorella Doodles. She goes by Fiorella Doodles on Instagram. She put the Toronto Diamonds. And she said it's because it's a reflection of, because like a diamond's multifaceted, and it's a reflection of light and just like the multifaceted communities that we have in Toronto. I was like, oh!
I like that.
And
it's creative.
she put an ode to like Drake's album cover views.
Nice.
And stuff like that in there too. I was like, I can get behind that. I told him, like, I can get behind that one. I think that, and you could already see like the jerseys. You say diamonds, you can see the jerseys right now. You know, like that.
I think I like that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely get where you're coming from with the legacy thing, and I like it, and I like the idea of, building a legacy the same way the Raptors did when they came in 95, or the
Totally.
Vince Carter effect, and how, the impact that's had on basketball. And I think everyone hopes the WNBA in Toronto will have that same, leave that same legacy on women's basketball and girls basketball in Toronto. But I like diamonds better. I think there's just so much more you can kind of
do with
yes,
it.
exactly.
I can see the jerseys, white with the sheen, like that, like color. Yeah. So, okay, so give me your Huskies justification.
And the thing is, I was gonna say I do get the argument that they should forge their own identity, and Huskies is kind of this old, stale thing that is more in line with, like, men's professional basketball in Toronto. But for me, I thought there would be something really cool about bringing it full circle when it comes to professional basketball in Toronto, men's or women's, because the Huskies, it's recognized as the first game in NBA history. Toronto, New York, at Maple Leaf Gardens, which will be 80 years before the WNBA season tips off in 2026.
Yeah.
I think there's just so much there where it's like you can bring it full circle. Again, men's or women's, where professional basketball in Toronto started with the Huskies, and now this new team that's coming that's got all this buzz around it is kind of they can still make it their own. They're taking that legacy and they're running with it on their own. I think it still encompasses Canadian culture in a way, when you can think about like Huskies and Wolves and Canadian winters.
You can see that.
I know the Raptors back then didn't do it. They also wanted their own identity and legacy. Plus, I think it was maybe too similar to the Timberwolves. But I feel like this was an opportunity to bring it full circle, to still encompass Canadian culture a little bit while paying homage to basketball history and culture in Toronto. I think it would be really cool. But I do understand the argument that, look, let's come up with something fresh. Let's forge our own identity completely separate to that.
The full circle argument, that's like probably the most compelling one I've heard to this day for the Huskies, because otherwise they're just like, oh, it's just history. I'm like, okay, like, we don't got to repeat history per se.
Yeah.
However, like, you saying it in the way that you did, like, basically like women can claim it too.
Right.
And then that's almost an ode to the progress we've made as society, supporting women in sports as well. And then obviously the history of, like, then we know the history ties of the first NBA game ever, blah, blah, blah. But, like, I think that's the best argument I've heard for the Huskies.
That's the way I envisioned it, where it's like, hey, like, Huskies is a part of basketball culture. Right. It's not a part of men's basketball. No, to me it's just basketball. It's basketball culture and history, Like, I think it would be cool, the first NBA game was played by the Toronto Huskies at Maple Leaf Gardens, and then, the first professional women's basketball will be played. I know they had an exhibition game here, but it wasn't a Toronto team. But like, the first professional real women's basketball game as a Toronto team will be Huskies. I think it would be amazing. But I'm sure they'll come up with something good, whatever it is, whether it's legacy, diamonds, Huskies, something else that we can't even think of right now.
I've seen like Raptorettes.
Yeah, see, that I wouldn't like.
I'm like,
that's where I would be like, okay, now we're just literally feminizing the male team. Like, no.
Like, I get it with, like, Minnesota Lynx and, like, the Timberwolves.
Right.
Like, there's some similarities there, but, like, come on.
Raptorettes, like, come on. We can do better than that.
It's a little too on the nose.
Yeah, we can do better than that. All right, Sav, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate you. Like I said to Will and Alex a couple weeks ago, we'll definitely have you in again. As I mentioned off the top, Sav's also sideline reporter for the Raptors on Sportsnet, so she doesn't just cover the WNBA. We will definitely have her back on to talk Raptors and other NBA stuff as the season goes on. Until then, again, you can catch her on SWISH inside the WNBA on NBA TV Canada. For Savanna Hamilton, for everyone in the control room, I'm Joseph Casciaro. This has been the Unfiltered Show. Thanks for watching.